Something exciting is happening at Arise Play.
Oh, shit.
We're welcoming new faces. New biopics.
Because of what Dr. King called the fierce urgency of now. If you think about it, the odds of me standing here are very slim. We can make this election not about fear, but about the future.
I moved to New York, met some cats, made some music.
Studied piano too, huh?
Nah, just woke up black, knew how to play.
You're black?
Music don't move on and it's dead music. It's all about improvisation.
The fact is, there's still so many things we just can't explain. I believe we're all capable of performing miracles. Up here.
He did that to you, didn't he?
Why?
Are you still gonna be a part of the group?
Shadows come.
People are trying to destroy what we built. You and me, we started this thing.
My heart's still alone.
It takes a lot of faith to do this, Marco. I always knew you had the gift. It makes me feel I've done something right. Don't lose it.
We're adding new titles every day to our awesome collection of blockbuster movies, from Hollywood to Nollywood. Download the app and subscribe. This isn't just a streaming channel. This is a bold new world of entertainment. Arise Play. Beyond streaming.
Welcome to This Week, 60 minutes of analytical review of the big stories, topical issues, and all the controversies around the world. I'm Somna Sambo. Coming up, governing APC holds world congresses despite fears that the party is sitting on a legal time bomb, with Buni holding dual positions as governor and interim national chairman, contrary to Section 183 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Party says AGF Abubakar Malami has given a go-ahead. And bank chiefs promise to support CBN's ban on sales of foreign exchange to bureau de change operators. The BDCs are accused of aiding money laundering and attempting to dollarize the economy. Plus, an investigation is opened into whether the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, received money from fraudster Ramon Abbas, known as Hush Puppy. Also, Nigeria's Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, denies arms sales deal with United States, says reports of U.S. Congress pressuring President Joe Biden to review arms sales to Nigeria over human rights concerns are untrue. The All Progressives Congress is going ahead with what Congress is today, despite warning by top party leaders that unless Buni is dropped as interim national chairman, the party may face several litigation against its candidates. The APC leadership says the opinions of people like Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Festus Keyamo, Babafemi Ojudu, and Itainang on the implication of last Wednesday's minority judgment of the Supreme Court should be jettisoned. The party insists that Buni's position as governor and national chairman of APC did not violate Section 183 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. There have been fears, including from 2 presidential aides among other party leaders, that if the caretaker committee goes ahead to organize the APC congresses, it could lead to legal tussles and ultimately affect the party's outing in 2023. The congresses began on a smooth note on Saturday, with the party leadership encouraging consensus and warning against parallel congresses.
This chairman has been able to lift the party from the wood into a skyline that is being recognized all over the world. So we will not dance to the beating of the PDP. We will not be used to bring down the government of the APC.
So they're not to be intimidated. We should not be intimidated by anybody. Our party will remain firm. The Congress of the party will go on as scheduled on Saturday, inshallah. By the grace of God, everything that has been put in place will come to fruition. Everything that has been put in place by the party will come to fruition. Because you can imagine the kind of confusion that the country would have been thrown into if the judgment of yesterday had gone the other way. If anything, what happened was that the judgment of the tribunal that says that the holding of political office, party position, does not contravene Section 183 of the Constitution still stands. And that is his judgment. That was his judgment that was given by the tribunal, that was upheld by the Court of Appeal, and upheld by the majority decision of the Supreme Court. I don't know why people are attributing so much to the judgment of the minority. This is of no value.
All right, for an in-depth analysis on this new development, I'm joined by Professor Chris Nwokobia, who is convener Country First Movement, and Arise News analyst, Professor Abiodun Adeni. Gentlemen, it's good to have both of you here, professors on the show. I just hope we won't become too academic.
No.
All right, so let's start with this. Starting from you, we've seen the APC here facing a turmoil, and some people have said there seems to be a legal minds, in place for the APC right now, and the PDP, the major opposition parties, mocking the ruling All Progressives Congress as a party with a caveat emptor, because right now there seems not to be a very standard procedure for the organs of the party to continue, because it looks like there's no strong organ of the party that's actually fully functional, beginning from the Board of Trustees to the National Executive Committee and then to the National Working Committee. What's your assessment of this, what some people have called the booby trap on the APC?
Now, let me say first, as we grapple with the issues, that the quote of Walter Scott comes handy. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. And that's in reference to those who are celebrating what appears like a booby trap, which is certainly and actually not. And I say this advisedly. The first thing to note is that there is no booby trap. The second thing to note is that the PDP is attempting to make a mountain out of a molehill. And then the third thing to note is that, like the legal advisor of the All Progressive Congress stated, the Constitution does not envisage that should you have a chairman of a caretaker committee, that equals to an individual holding double positions. The Constitution doesn't envisage that. And I tell you clearly, some people who have been arguing about this forget that at some point you have a president, most presidents, who head government and head sub-regional organizations, head committees and commissions. You have state governors who head the state executive and head other committees, and that's what the legal advisor of the party was trying to say there. That Section 183 of the 1999 Constitution does not envisage that the head of a caretaker committee or organ of a party can be deemed to be holding double positions.
Okay, very interesting perspective there. But let's come to you, Professor Adeniyi. If the APC constitution itself actually states it clearly that you cannot hold an executive position and be holding an executive position within the party's hierarchy, then doesn't it actually state clearly that it's based on what the constitution had foreseen, that you cannot be a governor and be holding an executive position where you are either paid or something like that? Because if not, why would the APC constitution actually mention that?
Well, now, one thing we need to bear in mind is that in political processes and procedures, from the little I know, most of the time it's not so much about legalese, but it's about understanding agreement and what I sometimes like to call politicking. Yes, we have the rules, we have the regulations, like a guide, but we need to focus more on the philosophies of these processes, which sometimes underline the decisions that they take. It's been very convenient for APC to continue with the caretaker committee in the last couple of months, for different reasons, and most importantly, ahead of calculations toward the 2023 presidential election. You may not be able to follow them at that level, but at the level of the judiciary, again, we have had the Supreme Court coming to intervene indirectly in what has been interpreted as a booby trap, but which my colleague has said is actually not. But what we also need to understand is that some of these legal provisions, some of these stipulations are often subject to interpretations, different interpretations, and can be very dynamic over space and time. So it's not necessarily monolithic, neither are they cast in stone. They are fluid and they are subject to different interpretations, depending on the capacity of the one who is going to interpret
but isn't it controversial if 3 out of 7 Supreme Court judges in a ratio of 4-3 who actually state that this is an issue? They actually feel that it's an issue that should be looked upon.
Yeah, but like I was trying to say, lawyers will tell you about evidence and they will tell you about precedents. This will serve as a precedent, but it's not often time that you win matters only on the basis of precedents. Evidence can also come in and shape the course of adjudication. So it's not necessarily, it may not be a frightening time for APC yet, but we are concerned about APC because it's a major party, and whatever happens to APC might actually rub up on the polity, as the case could be. And of course, we are more interested in good governance, and APC is one pedestal through which we can get that achieved.
Especially when it comes to internal party democracy. Yeah. Let's have your view on that. If this decision could actually split the Supreme Court judges 4-3, isn't it a big issue that a lot of Nigerians should be interested? That the ruling party doesn't seem to be following its own dictates, its own rules that's set by itself in a way that actually makes internal democracy looks, somehow.
Let me say clearly that the hoopla is a machination of political forces. Clearly, what came before the Supreme Court was not whether the acting chairman of the party is legitimately holding office. It wasn't the issues. And so when people raise the storm, they forget that if you're talking about the constitutional right of the chairman, the governor of Yobe State, to pretend over the party at this point, the Constitution does not say what he's doing is wrong. Now, those who are arguing are saying, okay, if you were to interpret the APC Constitution, it says that the caretaker committee chairman should be in office for 6 months. And now the Constitution also provides that it is subject to renewal. And then it does not say how many times you can renew that 6 months tenure. Now, what is clearly before us is not an affront on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria or the Constitution of the party. What is clearly before us is the politics of 2023. Every political force and those who are political operators are looking at how they make the best of every moment. And that's what's happening. My brother and friend, the Minister of State for Labor, who raised the issues, is from my home state.
He's not the only one.
No, but who raised the issues first? He threw it out before the public domain first. He's from my home state. And his interest is how the whole thing pans out to helping him become the governor of Delta State. So many other political interests raising issues and looking for how it favors them. But the truth is that
all right.
the party
I'm afraid we just have to go on. We'll have to go on a break.
Law.
When we come back, we'll continue that conversation. It's time for a short break. Stay with us. When we come, we'll continue with these issues. Welcome back to This Week. I'm Somna Sambo. I'm still here with Professor Abiodun Adeni, who's a Rise News analyst, and also Professor Chris Nwokobia, who's the convener of Country First Movement. And we've been discussing the critical issues facing the All Progressives Congress, which is the governing party. And I will come to you, Prof. Adeni. A lot of people had anticipated that based on that minority judgment of the Supreme Court, in that case between Eita Jegede and Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, that the APC could have summoned an emergency National Executive Committee meeting or some sort of to actually take a critical look, because people have said that yes, indeed, that minority judgment may have in one way thrown a lot of issues out, and that anyone who goes on to be elected on the platform of the APC going forward from World Congresses up to the highest level, that it could be subject to litigation and then it could lead to a crisis for the party. What's your view about that?
Yeah, I don't think they probably went to sleep after the judgment. I'm sure there must have been some comprehensive consultation, even at the back door, you know, or amongst themselves before they came to the open. And do not forget, we have seen from the media reports that, of course, the president was actually consulted, he was contacted, and he advised that they sought the opinion of the Attorney General. We've been told to, the Attorney General has asked them to proceed, you know, and my boss, incidentally, Professor Tahir Maman, came to say that, yeah, you know, that
who's chairing the Constitutional Review
Committee, that there's nothing to fear, they should proceed, you know, and of course we have seen party officials saying that there's nothing to worry about. So I don't think that to some extent they don't know what they are doing, you know, and that's why I'm talking about the overarching issue of interpretation at the end of the day. But there's something that is also fundamental to it, Sumner, which we shouldn't forget. Maybe we should be concerned in the future about how we reduce the intervention of the judiciary in our political process, you know, in our party process, the democratic process.
And how can we do this? We can do this if the parties continuously try to get their acts right, not just in party administration, what we sometimes call internal democracy, but in the electioneering process as well, in intra-party, in inter-party affairs, in intra and inter-party affairs, so that we can have seamlessness, increased seamlessness, and we do not have to be having the judiciary intervening for us most of the time. Because our fear now is that, if APC continues with this Congress, someone else might come out tomorrow and say, no, the group, the leaders administering the process are illegal in the first instance, and it will just disrupt the whole thing. And of course, in law, they say if you can't build something on nothing. Yes. So if there's nothing in the first instance, there cannot be nothing on it. But for how long are we going to continue in this regard? The parties will have to get their acts together going forward, not just in their own interest, but in the interest of growth and development overall. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the congresses that are ongoing. We've seen this Saturday's Congress is actually being preceded by a warning by the Interim National Caretaker Committee, saying that it's warning against parallel congresses, it's warning against imposition, and then it's asking most of the state chapters to actually see how they can encourage the issue of consensus. Why would a party that's supposed to show democratic ideals, democratic leadership, be asking for consensus to be the major deal? Isn't the APC losing it?
No, let me say clearly that consensus is part of the democratic process. All over the world, if you look at what happens with power succession in Israel, in several other parliamentary democracies, you find that the parties will try to reach each other and then ensure that rather than going into elections, they reach valid and acceptable consensus. I think it's commendable if the party is saying, rather than waste so much time, find out the candidates who are best most acceptable and best suitable for
Yeah, but we've
positions.
heard some members crying, especially in Kwara today. There was a ward where there was a cry of imposition, saying that the consensus candidate agreed upon by the party was different from the one that the people wanted. So the INEC officials, they had to be summoned to intervene, and eventually it is the candidate that the members wanted that was allowed to go on and to contest.
So no, that's democracy. You agree to disagree and disagree to agree, and ultimately you reach certain consensus or you vote. What we must note, and that's where I align with my brother, is the fact that as we grow our democracy, we must learn to deepen debate. We must learn to, rather than jump to judiciary, resolve teething issues within the party, so that those who will come into the political fray, maybe when we're gone, would look back and say, at some point, the Nigerian political process evolved deeply such that people would sit within the party, evoke and invoke concepts and intendments of party democracy within and outside the party, and then rather than bedevil the judiciary with issues about primaries, about who becomes a gubernatorial candidate or not. I think that the time has come for us to ask parties and advise our members to do what is proper, try to right. But chiefly, in doing that, we're also saying that consensus building is the best way to go.
Yes, but we've also seen that being a major challenge. For example, of recent, President Muhammadu Buhari recently was the only person that allowed for the NWC's tenure to be extended just alone, based on some form of consensus that a lot of party members are not happy about. The convention was supposed to have been held in December. That didn't hold. It was supposed to have been held June, just last month, and that didn't hold. We just had the president coming out of a meeting from the presidential villa and saying that, look, their tenure had been extended, even indefinitely. Isn't that consensus a challenge?
A certain consensus. You don't know what happened behind the scene. Several party members
but why are party
leaders
members
of the parties met and decided on the fact for convenience and because of the time, the urgency of now, to extend the tenure of the president. And that's consensus building within the party. Sumner, had the Supreme Court not reached the judgment of a few days ago, this issue wouldn't have been in the front burner. And let me say clearly that what happened was the Supreme Court reaching a majority judgment 4 to the minority 3. And you cannot say that the party is troubled because a certain minority judgment is there. I think that the time has come for us to largely ask the APC, the PDP, and all the political parties to deepen the process of dialogue.
Okay, very
so
interesting. Now, Professor Adeni, I want you to take a critical look at that part when these judges, majority of the judges have said that because Buni was a major factor in that court suit, they agreed on 4-3 because he was not sued by Eita Jegede. And then the major question then is that how can Buni be a party to that suit when he is a sitting governor who enjoys immunity?
That's a very difficult question. Some contradictions, really. But
yeah, it wasn't a criminal proceeding.
He can be sued. He can be called to court.
Well, so then the question beggars belief: why is it that Eita Jegede and his team did not sue Buni? Meanwhile, in the suit, you could hear Maimala Buni being mentioned over and over.
But can there be a perfect action, really? Sometimes the best lawyers often run into some oversights, you know, and of course the opponent might just cash in on it, or maybe the umpire, the judges, as the case could be, you know, will not find a reason to use it against them. So I don't believe that can be. That's why the governor of Ondo State, for instance, said it's just an act of God that he survived by the hair's breadth, you know, because
the question still lies that if Maimala Buni had been listed, would the courts have in one way said because he enjoys immunity he should not be sued as APC national chairman?
That's not a hypothetical pose. we want us to speculate, which may not lead us anywhere. I don't know.
Yeah, because we heard the PDP lawyer actually saying that they didn't want to do that because they felt that he enjoyed immunity. Okay. And so this calls to question, if you're holding, very quickly, if you're holding both positions, can you be sued?
No, let me say clearly that the Constitution and the Criminal Code envisages that you cannot sue a serving governor under Section 308 because he has immunity from criminal proceedings.
Okay.
Now you can add him as a party to a civil suit. The point is that before the Supreme Court, the question as to the legality of the tenure or the chairmanship, acting, if you like, of the APC chairman was not an issue.
We have to go on break right now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us here on Arise News. Welcome back to This Week, where we hold the best of analysis and conversations. I'm Sumner Sambo, and I still have with me here in the studio Professor Chris Mwakobia, who is the convener of the Country First Movement, and we also have Professor Abiodun Adeni, who is a Rise News analyst. And gentlemen, we've been discussing these issues of the APC and then the alleged time bomb that is awaiting everyone in that party. And we've seen lots of people actually saying that the congresses should be suspended. In Rivers, for example, you had Magnus Abe asking his members not to come out for the congresses and all of that. There seems to be varied interpretation of what it actually means for the party to continue to have Memala Buni as its interim national chairman. But the question is, back to that minority judgment, and I wanted to have your perspective from the legal point of view of whether or not it is sufficient for someone who is a state governor to be sued while he's holding his position as interim national chairman of a ruling party.
Let me say clearly that the Constitution and indeed the Criminal Code, precisely Section 308 of the Constitution, envisages that you cannot sue a sitting governor, a deputy governor, a sitting president or the vice president for criminal charges whilst he's in office. But some even do not even know that you can investigate. That's point number one.
Yeah, until when they leave
office. Then you can sue.
After they leave
on
office.
Civil action, you can take civil suits against a serving governor, a serving president. That's why people are suing the president for infringement of their rights, the constitutional rights to freedom of speech. You can sue. You know. Now, what is important to note here is that what are you suing the APC interim chairman for? Does the Constitution, Section 183, not expressly state where he's occupying another office infringes and he hasn't infringed the Constitution? That's point number one. And that was why in my opening, I stated clearly that you can have a president who is a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and acting as the head of ECOWAS and acting as the head of United Nations
and the question I asked him is that why then did the APC Constitution actually state clearly that you can't be holding any other executive position and hold a party position?
No, what the Constitution of the APC provides clearly is not that you cannot hold an interim acting position. A substantive position under the law is different. You have ad hoc committees. The interim position of the Yobe State governor is an ad hoc assignment. Okay. And the Constitution of the party does not provide against it.
Although
and that is why
that ad hoc assignment being extended twice. That's where the problem lies. From 6 months to 1 year.
We're talking about the law here. If that same Constitution provides that you can extend the tenure of an ad hoc committee, then what's wrong with it? I think that, like I said initially, that politicians prone to mischief for personal end, that's the hoopla.
So there should be no caveat emptor on the APC,
no,
like the PDP said.
There shouldn't be any.
All right, we have to move on to other story now. The Naira appreciated to 520 Naira to $1 on the parallel market. The appreciation comes as chief executive officers of banks promised to support the new foreign exchange measures by the Central Bank of Nigeria and the regulator's effort to achieve foreign exchange stability. CBN says it will commence the refund of capital deposits and licensing fees to bureau de change operators who had pending license applications before the Tuesday announcement of the end of foreign exchange sale to currency dealers. Let's listen to this.
CBN sells $20,000 to over 5,500 BDCs per week. This amount translates to about $110 million per week and about $5.72 billion per year. This is a scarce resource, and Nigeria's central bank, the Nigerian government, cannot continue to allow this unwholesome practice to continue in Nigeria.
All right, we've heard the central bank governor here explaining why they had to place this ban on these BDCs and, win them off, Forex. And a lot of Nigerians will actually be saying that, look, when we got into the Fourth Republic, we just had like about 700 BDCs. That's at 1999. By 2000, it moved up to like about 2000. And then, it kept rising. And shouldn't the CBN have known that something is going on there? And that's why there's a huge demand for new licenses for BDCs. Why has it taken the CBN so long to know that the BDCs were in one way or the other conduit pipes for money laundering?
Well, maybe to just say quickly, it may be better late than never. It looks like an appropriate monetary policy in the circumstance, to stabilize the naira, given the continuous crash. But again, looks very artificial, because the fundamental things around production, around increasing the manufacturing sector, ramping up the economy, triggering the multipliers to to bring about dollars into the country, and reducing imports of goods and services is still there. So measures that have been taken are just ordinarily artificial. We are not sure where it's going to take us to. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is, you also need the human elements in the implementation of these processes, and we have had it in the past. CBN has come out with different policy measures in the past, but of course we have seen contraventions, because of the lucrativeness of foreign exchange deals, especially if you are one of those people that is engaged in
millionaires
you get from the official market and you sell in the black market. Suddenly you become very rich. It can be very attractive and tempting and difficult to stop people from continuing this process. So the speculators are there. How are we going to discourage them? CBN has come out with very strong policy, very good, no doubt. The banks will also have to be in line, no doubt as well. But to what extent can this happen? Because the underlying downsides, affecting us, corruption, imperfections, dishonesty, those things are still there. This value disorientation are still being,
But let's just go back to a little bit history. In the 60s, 70s, and even 80s, a lot of Nigerians who wanted to travel just needed to go to banks to get their foreign exchange. At what point did we decide to bring bureau de change operators, and why have we kept them for so long?
Somehow, when rent seekers and rent takers took over our politics and our economics, when rent seekers became those who superintend over the banks and the CBN, we lost our values, we lost every sense of decorum and decency. Well, let me say this. Regarding the new policy, Somna, I'll break your heart if I remind you that in 2016, we had this same governor of the CBN,
you just came
very quick
to my question
policy,
because I wanted to ask
policy.
that. Yeah,
they talked about
with the raid of BDCs.
Do you understand? We saw a massive spectacle of security agents working with CBN officials to raid bureau de change. And as you and I talk, what bothers me is not so much about the policy proclamation. It's about the commitment to the policy. And I'd say this clearly, that you cannot ask a people not to go to the roadside market when the regulated market isn't working well. I think that the first thing we must do is to ensure that the CBN works effectively with the banks to make available Forex.
Well, that's why you have the bank chiefs supporting.
Then point number two, importantly, Somna, is the fact that before now, what really made it impossible was that friends of leaders, friends of bankers, friends of the #1 banker, that's the CBN governor, precisely, maybe not this, will go, they call it round tripping. In the morning you come to the bank, get official rates, and then go back, like the former CBN governor would say, you become a billionaire sitting at your garden. So I think that the time has come for us as a people to ask the present CBN governor to work out a policy and gradually, because what you're looking at now, it's like you said, I'd rather the naira not appreciated, the dollar appreciated against the naira, And it will continue for a long time because people will always want to cut corners. So what is important now is that this thing can be done in phases. Ensure that the banks have enough forex and ensure that someone monitors the banks such that the same banks do not sell to the roadside. It's important
okay,
that
very
we look at
interesting.
this.
For a lot of people who need this, I mean, you're an academic, you see a lot of Nigerians needing forex to pay school fees abroad, some people needing it for medical, payment here and there. How much of this trust can Nigerians have on the banks? When someone needs forex and he or she walks into the bank or mandates a bank to actually pay their school fees, how confident will they be that these banks will actually do that?
Yeah, tricky question, Somna. But fundamental to all of this is for us to understand that commodity is often a function of demand and supply. Simple economics. There's a high demand for forex in this country because of the problems with our infrastructures, with our utilities, with our services, with education, with our goods, against the background of the rise of consumerism and our tendency to
very
be
high taste.
Yes, our consumerism and our tendency to be materialistic, and not just for local commodities, goods, but for foreign ones. And how do you procure these foreign ones? They come in dollars, and of course we also like adventures, traveling and all of that, not just for educational reasons, for economic reasons. So there's a high demand for dollars, and because it is high, of course supply is low because we have little of those things here, so it will continue to rise. And that's why I said what CBN is probably doing, it may be a measure in the right direction, but it's still artificial, and like we have also pointed out here between me and my colleague, is the fact of execution, implementing the policy. Who are those that are going to implement it? Are they not Nigerians? Are they from the sky? And these people know the advantage they can get.
We just have to trust the system.
Oh yeah, we have to. Yeah, but how do we trust
to the bank? You need to be assured that once you walk into the bank.
Now how do we trust the system? Now how do we trust the system? We can trust the system, if you make examples out of people who are infracting on the processes or the rules laid out by CBN or by the banks. But when you don't make example out of people, you just paper the crack, people have a way of going free irrespective of their infractions, then of course it will just continue. There's no deterrence.
Nothing will deter anyone from the point there, Prof. Adeniyi. As we try to coast home on this particular issue, a lot of Nigerians are into BDC business. You see them, Abuja, Lagos and all of that. How much impact will this policy have on them? And do you think the CBN will fashion out a new policy that will ensure that these people do not take to crime or something? Because they are means of existence.
That was why I talked about the need for phasing out certain policies. If you want a new policy all over the world, you see what you call gradual exit, mid-term, long-term, and short-term. But unfortunately, we come with policies like czars, like dictators, like people who know the very end before we even start. And that is exactly why it worries me. You're talking about 5,000 BDC operators who are going to lose job. And if you calculate, knowing what exactly happens in Nigeria, you times 5 by 5,000, and you're talking about 25,000 persons who, whether you like it or not, are going to be jobless, and then their families. So I think that the time has come for us to understand that beyond how plausible, how wonderful certain policies are or seem, beyond the populism around them, we must first of all think about how it affects the human persona. Very interesting.
And just this morning, I received a message from my bank actually saying that if I need Forex, I'll be limited to just 4,000 USD per quarter. A lot of Nigerians usually need more than that 4,000 USD. So what do you do?
How much do you need to pay the school fees? So if you're going to be restricted to $4,000 per quarter, how do you pay the school fees? You still go back to the parallel market. So, like we just noted, you must interrogate.
School fees might be different from
except but we must interrogate the entire process.
Very interesting indeed. We have to go on a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion, especially on Abba Kyari and the Hush Puppy saga. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Week. I'm Sumner Sambo, and I still have with me here in the studio Professor Chris Mokobia, who's convener of the Country First Movement, and our own Professor Abiodun Adeni, who is a Arise News analyst and a professor of media studies at the Base University in Abuja. Thank you, gentlemen, for staying with us. Now, a high-ranking Nigerian police officer is being investigated by the FBI for allegedly making an arrest at the request of Instagram influencer Ramon Abbas, also known as Hush Puppy. Nigerian police spokesman Frank Mba sent a statement to a foreign broadcast news operator confirming that they received an indictment for Deputy Commissioner of Police Abba Kyari from the FBI and an internal investigation has been ordered. A statement was also sent to Nigerian journalists. Now, court documents cited by the Justice Department allege an undisclosed sum was paid to Kyari by Abbas, who pleaded guilty to charges of money laundering through cyber crimes. And there is now a quest for Abba Kyari to be extradited to the United States. And I'll start with you, Prof. Adeni. What do you make of this, whole saga? And I mean, we've seen Abba Kyari stating on his social media post that he actually only referred a tailor to, Hush Puppy and all of that, and there was no money's exchanged hands between him and this fellow. What's your view about that? Because a lot of Nigerians are calling for him to be indicted. Some are saying that no, we must protect our national interests and all of that. What do you make of all of this?
Well, it's very intriguing, but it's also salutary to see rightful authorities investigating it. The police hierarchy, they're investigating it. The Police Service Commission is also investigating. So we may not be able to be exhaustive in our comments now until some of these reports are out, some of these investigative reports are out, so that, again, we do not have to also to be sub judice, and he deserves...
well, it's not a court in Nigeria.
That's right, but not to subject him to media trial. He also deserves fair hearing, because he's not been pronounced or proven guilty yet, but maybe something else that is also central to it is in every profession, in every responsibility, we also need to be careful about the codes, about the rules, about the ethics of the profession, because sometimes we may be going overboard and we may not know. Yes, I heard that he has said somewhere that he only referred him to a tailor and all of that, and that, or maybe the man reported to him at some point, somebody who was threatening his life, and I was beginning to wonder at what point he became the entry point, to the police reporting system. Was it right that, the man, Hush Puppy as the case could be, will now choose him as the right person to report to, in raising a complaint, because I imagine that he's a very senior officer, so there must have been some processes, some structures, that are way under him, that should have been a channel for these reports. But we have made this point. It's also okay to be patient and await the investigations at the end of the day. If it remains only at the point of ethical misconduct, I think the senior police officer will be exonerated. But on the question of sovereignty and the need to protect our citizens, of course we have to be protective, because we have seen it even between these so-called industrial nations, how they've been protective of their own citizens. There was somebody who committed offense.
If the reverse was the case,
yes, who committed offense in the United Kingdom, and the U.S. and ran away to the U.S. It was even murder. But the U.S. refused to extradite this person, even after the U.K. courts have said it should be extradited. So at different levels, we need to be protective of our citizens. But again, we have to provide that justification from the point of view of the citizens.
Well, I just hope he wasn't a diplomat. But let's just come to you. Is it a case of Hush Puppy going down and he's just trying to drag everyone down along with him? Why would this issue be coming up at this moment?
To me, if you ask, it appears more like that. And I'll tell you why. A certain Wadume, his ring was busted by Abba Kyari. We have the young man who had made billions from, I think he's in Lagos now, in standing trial.
Evans.
His ring was busted by this same Super Cup. Sumner, if you were to turn the table, the Americans will not even receive that kind of indictment against a Super Cup in the US. They will tell you it is a matter they want to handle internally. Remember the case of Andrew Young. Remember Senator Jefferson. These individuals were involved in huge fleece of resources from Nigeria. Each time the Nigerian government under the EFCC, under Ribadu, talked about their case, nobody listened to EFCC, nobody listened to the SFU in Lagos, and that was how the Americans decided to handle it within. I think that what we must do in this country, that I'm not standing brief or holding brief for Abba Kyari, is to protect our own.
Yeah, I mean, the police authorities said they are investigating that. What do you expect at the end of it?
Within the police, I salute the effort, I salute the statement from Frank Mba, and I urge the police to do what they have to do within. But the affront in asking for the extradition of Abba Kyari is what I repudiate, and I lampoon with vehemence. Americans should deal with their issues and let us handle Abba Kyari.
Well, this is an issue of international crime, and it's a syndicate that Hush Puppy was running.
How many have they?
So,
how many
it's a big challenge. Well, since the issue is still in court, we just have to move on to other issues now. Now, the federal government has dismissed as fake news reports of an $875 million ammunition deal with the U.S. The government says it is not aware of any such deal, which some U.S. lawmakers purportedly blocked earlier in the week. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says no other arms deal exists between Nigeria and Washington apart from the 12 Super Tucano attack helicopters, attack aircraft, of which 6 had been delivered. He says Nigeria is satisfied with the progress and cooperation received from the U.S. government, and the relationship between both countries is smooth and waxing strong. Professor Abiodun Adeni, why would we have Foreign Policy magazine, a very strong U.S. think tank, outfit actually brings out some well-researched stories and materials, but this time around the Nigerian government is saying that, look, you got it wrong. There's nothing like that.
Well, we cannot rule out mischief in any space, and no matter how reputable, even some of the most reputable news organizations have been associated with what do you call it, with hawks, so you can't rule it out. This may well be another one, and of course they are saying that we wanted to buy arms, and we are saying there's nothing like that. When
I saw that $875 million, that's much more than the
you can maybe mischief somewhere, and maybe somebody is just trying to hit at us for some other reasons. But again, the underlying issues that they raise is also still there for us to deal with. Yes. Questions of human rights and the need for us to balance the fight against insurgency, criminality, and banditry with the protection of human rights of citizens, and not just human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. These are also central issues that the international community, particularly the U.S., are always interested in, will always be interested in. So we shouldn't lose focus of that while denying the report of this news magazine.
Now, who do we believe in this instance? Do we believe the Nigerian government, or do we believe that this U.S. publication, which quoted U.S. lawmakers, specifically in the House and Senate committees on foreign affairs, was actually out for mischief?
Clearly, Somna, you can smell mischief here, because as you and I talk, some of the Tucanos that were paid for have left the U.S. And so it means that the American government has allowed some purchase of weaponry from America. So whatever is happening, I think that what we must note is that in the fight against insurgency and the fight against terror, in trying to handle issues about separatist movements, we must understand that fundamentally, Chapter 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria provides for certain fundamental and, if you like, inalienable rights.
So there will always be collateral damage too while that's going on.
No, but you must deal with the issues dispassionately, and because we live in a highly progressive world, you have to put into consideration the rights of citizens to certain fundamental freedoms.
Very interesting.
In a democracy.
Yes, of course. That's what a lot of Nigerians have been saying, that the Buhari administration needs to be very careful of the country's human rights record while prosecuting the war against insurgency and all of that. Well, I must thank you so much, Professor Chris Nwakobia, convener of the Country First Movement, and Professor Abiodun Adeni, who's a Rise News analyst, who have all been here with us, helping us understand the issues as they happen. Well, that's it for this edition of This Week from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye, and thank you for watching. I'm Summer Sambo.